Good evening and welcome back to Capital Tide, a statewide look at politics. I'm Tim Boyum. It is Wednesday, time for Advocates, the folks whose job it is to research topics we talk about right here each and every night. Tonight we're joined by Bryson from the Conservative Americans for Prosperity and Rob Schofield from the Progressive NC Policy Watch. Guys, welcome back to the program. Good to see you.
Yeah, Tim, good to see you.
All right, so let's talk about gas tax first. This is one of those interesting issues that seems to be dividing both parties. The Senate is voting today, in fact, on a deal that basically caps it at 35 cents, freezes it until 2016, and then sets it as a floor. You believe that this is a smart idea?
Yeah, you rarely hear me say Senator Berger is basically right. Those 5 words.
We're going to record this forever.
Yes, I know, I'm in trouble. They're right. We obviously need more resources. Unless we want to go back to having gravel roads everywhere, we've got to continue to invest in transportation. Is this the absolute best way to do it? No, I think it's kind of silly that we're going to cut it and fire a bunch of people and then raise it. We got to just be honest that we need the revenue. But that said, it puts us on a path to having more revenue to meet important needs. It is regressive. There are things we should do to address that, like restoring the earned income tax credit. But bottom line is we've got to invest in infrastructure, and this is one way to get it done.
This is a Republican plan. I know you're not a Republican group, but you guys are
Sure.
conservative. You have a problem with this.
Yeah, I think the first problem is calling it an overall tax cut. While it does temporarily cut the rate from 37.5 cents to 35 cents, the rate is projected to go down to 30 cents over the summer. And so by freezing it at 35 cents, it acts as a tax increase over time. And over the next 5 years, it's going to raise about $1.2 billion in additional revenue, which that's a tax increase by every definition of the word. I think there are ways that we should definitely invest in infrastructure in the state, but this leaves a lot on the table, or a lot on the table. It's not taking things up about how we calculate the state gas tax, how we actually fund transportation initiatives in this state, and just this bill in a silo by itself is a tax increase, and that's how AFP is going to treat it.
Progress NC is a very, very liberal group by all accounts.
Right.
You guys are actually agreeing on this issue.
Sure.
I mean, how does that happen?
Well, I think, I don't know who coined the term first, but we're both using the term bait and switch, in that we're being told, well, this is a tax cut. It's a tax cut. It's a tax cut. No, it's not. You're telling taxpayers that it's a tax cut, and then it's not. Progress NC has problems with the regressivity of the tax. My problem is that you just shouldn't lie to voters.
Well, I agree with you that it's a silly way to go about doing it, but the end result to where we get is where we've got to get. We obviously need more money we've got crumbling bridges, we've got all kinds of infrastructure needs in this state, and not just in highways and roads and transportation. So I agree it's a silly way to go about doing it, but the end result is a good one, and with a few tweaks, it could be a really good proposal.
I should say, we have heard from Republicans that don't believe it is a tax increase. They say we don't know what's going to happen with oil prices over the next several years.
Which is how it's pegged to that.
And so they feel very strongly that it's not. Maybe we should call Grover Norquist. I don't know.
Sure. Well, we do know that the tax rate is going to go down over the summer, so at least in the short term for the rest of 2015, it's a tax increase.
And a lot of people are going to lose their jobs because of this short-term tax cut, which I don't understand why they're going that road, but be that as it may.
Donald, let me ask you this. We've heard $60 billion in revenue needed to build roads over the next 30 years and to maintain. So if we're not going to do some of this gas tax and we're not going to raise revenue, how do you propose that we fix and build these roads then?
Well, I'm still listening to ideas that the governor's proposing about the $1.2 billion he's proposing in the road bond. I'm still trying to figure out what I sort of think about that. I think that's one way to look at it. Another thing is to just simply redo how we calculate the gas tax in general. We currently have it pegged to fluctuate based on wholesale gas prices. Well, that's a very volatile market, and that goes up and down. But what also is pegged to gas prices is the actual construction of roads and repairing of roads itself. Asphalt requires oil, all the trucks require diesel or gasoline, the tires that they're on require oil and all that. And so you've got the revenue doing this, and then you've got the actual construction costs doing this, and the whole problem is doing this. What we should do is set just a flat rate, sort of like South Carolina has done, and figure out if we should raise that or lower that. I think if we're concerned about the growth of that revenue, maybe peg it to inflation of GDP or something like that, so that there's much, much less volatility in how we pay for roads in this state. But the current proposal just, it's lacking in that sort of reform.
I do want to say for folks that don't know this well, our tax is higher than a lot of it, but we also have more maintained roads, and that is
just about any other state.
Yeah, except for Texas, and it is the largest portion of what funds roads in the state. So there's a challenge there that people don't always understand.
In the long run, though, we're going to have to move towards something like a vehicle miles traveled tax or something like, because we're hoping a lot more people are going to buy gas-efficient cars that are going to use a lot less gas. We're obviously going to have to modernize. I agree with you. We need to modernize the system going forward, and some of the suggestions you offer may make sense. In the immediate term, though, we clearly need more revenue to fix crumbling bridges, and they've got to do something.
I think it does make a lot of sense, as he said, there's some sort of user fee. I'm all about consumption to pay for things in government, and so, you know, because people get to choose when they pay that tax.
Then
so
we get to have is a fee a tax argument. Is a fee a tax?
There you go.
Well, revenues, we got a new report from fiscal at the General Assembly that we're now $271 million. They think it could stay that way. It's about $70 million more than we were before. Rob, I know you're going to probably link this to the tax cuts, but the fiscal analysis that it has to do more with wage growth.
Right. Well, we know that wage growth, and we knew then, wage growth is at the top. That's where all the wage growth in North Carolina is. The jobs that are being created are low-wage jobs. They're lower middle-class jobs. So it's no surprise that revenue's lagging. I think it's clearly a direct result of the 2013 tax cuts. We would have probably around $1 billion more in the budget next year if we hadn't done these tax cuts. And think of what we could do with $1 billion. So I think it's an unfortunate development. It's just further confirmation of what some of my colleagues at the Budget and Tax Center were predicting 2 years ago.
But they do say that the median, not the average, but the median is 2.5% error in fiscal, and this is only 1.3%. So it seems like historically they're
maybe they'll be wrong. Maybe they'll be wrong. I mean, maybe we'll have a big April surprise. Maybe there'll be more money than we thought.
That's all we need is another big April surprise, one way or the other. Right. You disagree, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, if the 271 million is the true number, fine. I think a very flippant way, as I've heard some conservatives say, is, well, we cut more taxes than we meant to. That's more money in the pockets of North Carolinians. I do think that there is an overarching problem of revenue projections in general in the state. As you said, they're typically off by about 2.5%. This is only 1.3%. We need to figure out how to project revenue. But I'm perfectly okay with another $270 million being in the pockets of North Carolina taxpayers.
Well, the problem, though, of course, is that it's all in the pockets of the people at the top. That's because the tax plan that was enacted in 2013 is so slanted towards profitable corporations in the top 1%. That's where all the money's going. So
that's
the
not
bottom.
Necessarily true.
Well, it really is. If you look at the data, that the vast majority of the tax cut went to people at the top, and indeed many people at the bottom.
Because they paid the vast majority of the taxes
many of the people,
as well.
but many people in the middle and the bottom, because we expanded the sales tax actually, and because we did away with the earned income tax credit that helped working families, are actually seeing their taxes rise. So we've got this perverse situation where taxes went up for a lot of people, but revenue's actually gone down. I mean, that's about as bad of a design as you can come up with.
We're out of time here, but I mean, does this sort of discussion here show we need to sit back and wait before we make any other major changes?
I mean, perhaps so. I think worrying about revenue shortfall assumes that we have reached the perfect level of the amount of government we have in this state, and I don't think we've reached that yet.
Well,
that's
a whole
other show.
Different directions. Man.
Yeah, guys, great stuff as always. Thank you. Good to see you.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you.
All right, that's it for tonight. We'll see you back here tomorrow.